The Suicide Squad drama only gets worse, the upcoming RPG ditching those horny companions, and the Pokimane Twitch era is over. I'm Ash Dixon and this is GINX News. Suicide Squad's early access kicked off to a shaky start following the small tiny issue of the servers being completely offline. Since yesterday, the responsible bug has now been fixed, and it seems my suggestion of a partial refund has become a reality. Well, kind of, because players received the $20 in the form of in-game currency. But hey, at least it wipes you of the shame of buying those Harley Quinn skins, on top of the $99 deluxe edition. In total, servers were offline for 6 hours, and yesterday we thought that had been for longer. Turns out they just decided not to tweet out that things were fixed, so great job there. And now that the game is actually playable and not auto-completing, we're starting to be drip-fed a picture of how this game has actually turned out. Well, IGN's Destin has been playing it through, presumably not on a review copy, and according to him, the main story clocked in at around 9 to 10 hours, which is going to be initially disappointing to hear considering Rocksteady's previous game, Arkham Knight, was around 15 hours. But then again, this is a live service game, so who knows if the end game loop is enjoyable and worth your time. And the comparisons to Rocksteady's previous games don't stop there. By no means does Suicide Squad look like a bad game, but people have been pulling up side-by-side footage with Arkham Knight, and man, it just hurts to look at. Now, a quick reminder that Arkham Knight came out 9 years ago, and yes, it was one of the best looking games ever made at the time, but it should not look like the newer game of the two, especially as they were both made by Rocksteady. I mean, just look at it, and yeah, okay, I know exactly where your eyes are wandering right now. I really need you to concentrate, because just look at the contrast and the bold, moody lighting of Arkham Knight. It just makes Suicide Squad look dull and washed out. And I know the two don't have the same vibe, but games like Cyberpunk prove that you can have the dazzling neon color palette without losing any character. Either way, it's going to be an extremely interesting day once all of the reviews do finally come flooding in. Do you still have any hope that it won't be a complete flop? Do let me know in the comments. Following the smash hit success of Baldur's Gate 3, there's certainly some appetite for some more fantasy RPGs, and that's where Obsidian's Avowed hopes to sweep in later this year. However, they've now made clear that they plan to make a big deviation from Larian's masterpiece. You ain't gonna be screwing any of those spicy companions. Now, I'm not going to argue that it was the romance that made Baldur's Gate 3 great. I totally didn't get anything out of pursuing Shadowheart, unraveling her cult-fueled PTSD, and ultimately making her my hot goth GF. Oh, who am I kidding? From the very beginning, my dastardly tiefling was eyeing her up like, I can fix her, bro. And I mean, a certain grisly scene certainly helped propel the game into the limelight before it launched, but Obsidian have looked at that and said, no, we don't want any of that fuzzy business. And game director Carrie Patel went on to explain why. She said, you can't romance your companions in Avowed. I know we did some romances for companions in Deadfire, but the thing we found was that to pay them off, you really have to invest a lot in doing them well. And you also want to balance whatever you're putting into romantic relationships with ensuring that players who don't choose the romance path still have a fulfilling and complete experience with those companions. Which is a fair decision to make. They clearly want to put those resources elsewhere in the game, and I'd rather have no romance than bad romance. But I have enjoyed some of the discourse that has popped up from this. Over on Reddit, one person asked, genuine question, why is romance in an RPG so important to you? To which another user simply replied, I am horny. A lot of people also said it's just another layer of role-playing and immersion. Just because this is a fantasy world, it doesn't mean the characters don't have desires for love or lust, though if anything, Baldur's Gate 3 killed my immersion in this aspect, because on one of my playthroughs, I was Thomas the Tank Engine, and he is a sweet, innocent steam train, and can everyone please stop trying to him? But what do you think? Do you prefer RPGs without romance? Hit us up with your thoughts in the comments. We've also got some spicy little tidbits of news, so let's blast them out in a quick-fire round. The old cliche of can it run Doom has now made it to the cellular level. Yes, in quite probably the weirdest news of the week, scientists have somehow managed to use the guttural bacteria called E. coli to create a 48 by 32 pixel screen displaying the opening of the 1993 classic title. Now, before you all go running to your Petri dishes with controllers in hand, you should note that the whole process of creating just one image took 70 minutes, while returning the bacteria to their original state took over 8 hours. That would mean completing Doom at its 35 FPS limit would take 599 years. It was all part of research by MIT student Lauren Ramlan, who looks exactly as you would expect, and if you watch this, please hit me up where you get those sick sword earrings. And speaking of long times, Pokimane has been streaming on Twitch for over a decade, but apparently that's all about to change. She wrote in a post on Twitter that Twitch has been my home for a decade, but it's time to say thank you for all the memories and love during my League, Fortnite, and Among Us days. She didn't mention anything about what she plans to do next, with many speculating a move to a rival platform like Kick, which would be a little awkward considering her past criticisms, but then again, going by those cookies, money talks. Despite that, she's arguably the most significant female streamer, and considering the misogynistic cesspool that is the streaming community, it is genuinely incredible she managed to keep it up for 10 years. Either way, she'll be a big loss for Twitch, which, let's be honest, has already got enough difficulties to contend with. And finally, the biggest story of the week, the one you've all been waiting for, the game that's quite simply taken over all of our lives. That's right, Farming Simulator 22 is a record breaker. Selling a whopping 6 million copies, it's now the biggest entry in the franchise to date. To put that into context, it's around the same amount as Valheim, Guild Wars, and even The Sims 2. Why is it such a success? Well, I thought I'd venture to the Steam reviews to answer that question. And, well, here's some of the answers. Farm. And you do farm. No wonder it's the world's hottest esport.
If this gets in...
7:30, this bell goes in for 20, I think. This is not going to make it in, is it?
Six,
No,
five,
no.
four,
Go, go, go.
3, 2,
Oh, no.
1. Yes!
Oh, that's
Oh my God!
upset. There we go. They did it. They did just enough. That came down to the last bale.
And while we're talking about hot stuff, one of the hottest things you can do right now is subscribing to this channel and clicking that like button and checking out yesterday's video. We'll see you tomorrow.